It's an immense pleasure to introduce Mrs. Jyotsna Brar, a resource person who is a renowned educationist, inspiring teacher, and visionary edu leader. She has served as the principal of Welham Girls' School, Dehradun, for 16 years. The school topped the education world ranking among girls' boarding schools during her tenure. Mrs. Brar has conducted workshops and seminars in various institutions and forums in India and overseas on topics that have ranged from motivation and leadership, multiple intelligences, and classroom methods to assessment and evaluation. The values close to her heart include integrity, empathy for the weakest, and simple, self-sustainable living. A little brief about myself. I am Kavita Dass, Director of ICS Education Ltd, which promotes human resource development through career guidance and counseling programs, as well as a broad spectrum of training courses for leadership. Apart from that, I'm also an animal rights activist and have worked on the rescue and treatment of injured animals, as well as preventing cruelty to them. Now, brief about the Goa School. The Goa School's vision is to build sustainable communities of inspired people who will support each other to navigate life, the universe, and everything. We strive to create spellbinding, transformative mentoring and learning experiences that will empower our fellows to build a clear sense of purpose and grow into responsible world citizens. Now, I warmly invite Mrs. Jyotsna Brar to start her presentation and talk. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Kavita. And I'd like to start by thanking the Goa School, but more than that, by complimenting the Goa School for the thought behind this initiative. I don't want to take up too much introductory time, but I would like to say that when I was asked to speak to the fellows of the Goa School, I started wondering how I would speak to people who are actually, I would say, in the second decade of their lives, between the ages of 20 and 30, and with an age gap of over half a century, how I would be able to identify with them and make sense to them. But I believe that while they have got foresight, I have the blessing of hindsight.
That's right.
And therefore, somewhere in the middle, perhaps we can meet and speak about what is relevant.
Okay.
And I particularly decided that as a teacher of literature, what I might like to do today to just make it a little interesting and to get a peg on which to hang my talk is to look at the novel. Now, we have many forms of literature. Something which comes absolutely spontaneously out of the human, very characteristic of being human is poetry, of course. Drama is which is more constructed, but again comes very naturally, as we know, to children. But the novel is a very thought out process. It's not everyone who can write it.
Yeah.
In literature, we also look at novel in a certain way when we teach it or study it.
Yes.
So what I've decided to do is to take this equation and to say that in a way, our lives are our novels.
Nice.
And
Well
when
said.
we look, so when we look at our lives and we try and look at it as a novel, we can deconstruct it. And of course, our lives are our autobiographical novels. So we are writing our own autobiographies as we are going ahead in life. So if I deconstruct how a novel is looked at, I thought that young people today could have an objective look at the way their life is opening up. And through that, we can get a few lessons of how novels progress, on lives progress, and what become the crucial points, and how do we How do people handle them? So I decided to call my talk The Stories of Our Lives. And as you see, I've chosen an open book, and it's a lot of misty stuff coming out of it.
Yes.
Because when we are in our 20s, life just does look a little misty and mysterious, and one doesn't know how it's going to open out. But what I really thought I would focus on is that no matter which part of the novel we have reached or which part of the book we have reached, it's a preparation for the rest of it. And then we will see how we come to a resolution. So let's look at the basic elements of a novel. In case there are any young people there studying literature, they might find this a basic lesson in literature as well, particularly for the novel as one of the genres of literature. So, of course, the very first thing in a novel is the setting and the background, and we call it the exposition. All right, I'm going to go through this a little quickly and
Okay.
then do each one in detail.
Yes.
Then the novel has the characters. There is a central character or a protagonist, and then there are many other characters which come and make the life of this protagonist. And it keeps opening up. Then there's a plot. The plot of the novel is only the events and episodes which keep happening. Now, as you can see, you can start linking this with how life also happens. We have a background, we are the protagonist, and there are many other characters that come into our lives. And then there are many events and episodes which keep happening through our lives. Novels are always written from a point of view, from a perspective. I'll come to it later how this becomes really important when we are writing the novel of our lives. From which point of view do we start writing it? Central and critical to any novel or any story of a life is a theme. I'll come to this, and this is central. In fact, it's kind of overarching. And then there is a tone which is there for every kind of book that's written. So, looking at these elements of a novel, these are the basic elements of a novel. I thought, let's start looking at your novel, which is not even halfway through. It's probably only in the early chapters, and it is still developing. But if you see how lives and novels develop, right now, it could be a good way of looking at how we are going about things and to see how we can keep influencing ourselves. So let's go to the exposition or let's go to the background. Okay. Now you can see what I've drawn there. I haven't drawn it actually, I just picked up the graphic. Now, this is a very interesting aspect of our lives and a very interesting aspect of a novel because this is that part of our lives over which we have no control, or the central character has no control. For a start, we do not control our genetic lottery. We do not know who our parents are going to be. I mean, it's not something we decide. We don't know which family we are going to be born into, which background, which country, which part of the world, what circumstances, or what our childhood is going to be. So, whether we are born as the son of the richest man in the world, or we are born as a child currently living in Gaza,
Yes.
that is not something in our control.
True.
So, the exposition, if we look back at our own lives, we have a series of factors over which we don't have control at that time. They are pre-decided for us. So we
True.
can say that our exposition or the beginning of our novel starts with not just the external factors into which we are born, but it is scientifically established we are born with certain characteristics. We are born with certain qualities. Some are external. We are born tall or short. dark or fair, and these do start affecting our lives.
True.
We could be born ill or healthy. We could have genetic problems. We could have disabilities. So th this is the external side of factors beyond our control. We are also born with certain qualities and a basic kind of a nature. So internally and externally, we have these factors which are like the cards that are dealt out to us.
Correct. Like a
And that's what we
predisposition.
call the
Right.
exposition of the novel.
Right.
And so here's just a set of circumstances
Correct.
out of our control. But what starts happening is that there is an expiry date to this side of our lives. The stuff over which we have no control is short-lived because we start growing. And as we start growing, we hit a point where we start to think for ourselves. And
Right.
at that point, the change begins. Now it's for us to see what is this crucial point in our lives when we were able to start thinking for ourselves. We also know it is always a point where we don't quite know what to think, what to feel, and what to believe. So there is a transition period in our lives, which normally comes to us in our teens or adolescence, where we are doing a transition from that set of circumstances which are beyond our control and slowly having to move to a life where we start getting some control. And I think this is the most critical point of a novel as well as of our lives, because we get hit with a barrage of new thoughts, new feelings. Everything we are exposed to suddenly
True.
starts impacting us. But it takes time for us to process it inside our brains, inside our hearts, and to start arriving at what we want to be.
Right.
So
Mm.
this is really a critical time. Many of the fellows of the Goa school may be still in this particular aspect of flux. So let's look at all the other factors and elements which are going to start influencing us while we are going through this transition of what should we think, what should we do, what should we believe, how should we feel, and who should we trust, and so on and so forth. So
Mm.
these become very critical issues.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. The exposition is just the background and the setting. It's the cards you are dealt at the start of the game, the place, the family, your childhood circumstances, the qualities you are born with, they are not in our control. But then the next thing happens. There's a whole side to the novel, which is all the characters. And lots of characters come into our lives if we are the central character. Now, characters, when we study a novel or we study literature, this is a fascinating element because one is just the kinds of people, but there's also the question of character building, how our character builds up.
Yes.
So one is the characters or the people, the other is the way the character, uh, our own character and a few those who are close to us, how that builds up and how these start interacting
Yes.
and how they start influencing us and we start influencing them. So
Mm.
here is where the changes start happening and that makes it all exciting. So there's always the central character. We call the central character the protagonist. Now, the amazing thing about the central character of a novel, and if you look at yourself as the central character, it is in good literature, the central character goes through conflict.
Right.
So,
Yes.
conflict is a critical, essential aspect.
Mm.
And the central character is the one who goes through conflict, not just one, but many small conflicts. And there could still be a larger conflict. As you said, Kavita, at the beginning, I work with the Him Jyoti school.
Yes.
So I wanted to give an example of that. We get girls from the villages of Uttarakhand, from very economically weak families, and from very remote areas where they've not had access to anything much. When they come to a place like Dehradun or come to a school like Himjyoti, which is a residential school offering everything,
Yeah.
games, sports, co-curriculars, lot of exposure, teaching, good teaching, and they're allowed to be free and be themselves and aim high. They go through a lot of conflicts. These,
Oh,
these could be conflicts between extra simple home and family
yes. Yes.
and the jump that you are making
Hmm.
and what that may involve.
Yeah.
Do I look down at my family? So as you're growing, there is a lot. Should I aim to move far away from my family, or should I try and do something which will take me back to them? And all this is part of the growing up process. And the conditions at home, the conditions here, they could vary. Tomorrow they go to a huge big university. It's a completely alien space.
Yeah.
So there are lots of conflicts.
Yes. True.
And the central character has to eventually emerge with a resolution.
Hmm.
So that is uh, what we are working towards through
Yeah.
this novel of our lives.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then there are other main characters who come into our lives. These could be good ones or bad ones. Home, at work, or anywhere else that we encounter them. There are villains who we call antagonists. There are sidekicks. Now, sidekicks are very important people because the main character often engages in a lot of conversation with their sidekicks. And these conversations sometimes
Ah,
are what help you because you have somebody as a sounding board.
yeah.
And I'll give you a very famous novel called Don Quixote.
Hmm.
And Don Quixote is this madman central character. And he's got a sidekick who's always riding with him all over the countryside called Sancho Panza.
Yeah.
But the conversations that Don Quixote can have with Sancho Panza, saying, what do you think this is? Do you think I should attack it? Do you think we should bypass it? Helps the central character. So sidekicks are kind of important
Yes.
people.
Yes, they are.
Here, I would like to say that as we go through life, particularly the age the young people are, choosing your sidekicks wisely is a very important part of your growing up.
Right.
They should not be echoes,
Hmm.
they should give you their comments
Yeah.
very gently because they are not enemies, they are your friends.
Like unbiased.
They are unbiased, they have a bias, they like you,
Hmm.
but they are not going to push back too hard or get against you. But
Hmm.
you also have to learn how to be a sidekick to someone else,
Right.
maybe others. And when you're doing that, when you're listening to others or helping others, you also keep growing.
Hmm.
And as you grow older, of course, you meet mentors, other characters who can be your mentors, or you can become one for someone else. These are important people in a novel
Right.
because not only does the central character go through conflict and change, some of the main characters also do that. Then you have some flat characters. These are people who just come and go in your life. They just come and go through the novel. They help the plot to go ahead. So I can give you an example of Cinderella, where we had the fairy godmother, and she comes and she makes certain things possible. She doesn't talk to Cinderella, she doesn't listen to her emotional heartbreaks, but she just makes some things happen. So in our lives, there are people who come and they help the plot to go ahead. They provide us openings. What we make of those openings depends
Hmm.
on ourselves.
Hmm.
Here, the big trick is to recognize who is the person who's come in who's providing you with an opportunity for change. They themselves may be there for a very fleeting amount of time, but they've provided you with an opportunity for change. Some of the main characters might stay with you for a longer period of time. Could be your siblings, could be your parents, could be, and you fight with them, you enjoy life with them, but through the process, you grow. The focus, of course, is on the protagonist, the hero, the central character. Now, here, I am looking at it as a novel, but those who are listening to my talk, have a look at it as yourself as the protagonist, as the central character, the hero or the heroine of your own novel. First of all, to be a real hero and heroine, all of them are goal oriented. This does not mean that they have a narrow goal, like I am going to become a doctor, but I'm talking of a larger goal. I am going to be in a line of work where I can do something for other people. So that would be a kind of goal. Tomorrow it may not be a doctor, maybe a scientist, could be a teacher, could be a social worker, a person like you, an animal rights activist. But your goal is, I have to live for something larger than myself. So protagonists are goal driven, and they, because they're driven, they push the plot forward. So to
Mhm.
be a good hero, you have to keep pushing your own plot forward, and you have to know your larger goal.
Right.
Secondly, all the protagonists and heroes of a good literary novel face tremendous challenges. They encounter obstacles, they have conflicts, and these are very trying and testing. They challenge you in many ways because they have to test your resolve. You have to be strong enough to keep on
Right.
pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way that it leads to growth. So you can't give in. You have to be calm, focused, goal oriented, and keep pushing. All central characters are complex. They have multiple personality traits. They have weaknesses and they have strengths. In fact, when we look at Greek literature, most of their central heroes had one flaw which they find very, very difficult. Or we look at Shakespeare. There's
Shakespeare,
a
yes.
flaw which they find extremely difficult to overcome and which can influence their lives very badly. If you allow that flaw in yourself to control you, the novel turns out as a tragedy, or the play
Ah,
turns out as a
right.
tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you have envy or jealousy or mistrust as something you can't get over, let's say in a play like Othello, it leads not only to his own death, but to the disaster of people around him. So, we all are aware of our weaknesses. And if we know we've got a certain weakness, to become a truly goal oriented hero or heroine, we seek help to get over it.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson which definitely comes out as a life lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Heroes and heroines are relatable. That means they relate with and they connect to their environment. Very rarely will you find the hero of a life novel as somebody who's gone off into a jungle and locked himself in a cave. So there is, you have to relate to the world around you, and the world around you should be able to relate to you. Suppose you are terribly introspective. You can seek assistance to get over this and start becoming more better at communication, for example.
Right.
And the moment you can develop a skill that you can communicate, and communication doesn't mean talking, you can become a person who's a good listener, who is more empathetic. So, listening is the first part of communication. But if you know that I tend to be withdrawn and extremely introverted introspective, self dwelling, it's worthwhile to see it as a weakness or a flaw and to correct it. Because to be a real hero of your own life, you have to be able to relate with
With
others.
people. Yeah,
And
sure.
this, I mean, I'm saying it based on a lot of reading
Yeah.
that we do. And of course, heroes are not perfect. They have flaws, they have imperfections which make them human. So, of course, we're going to have some flaws, and imperfections could be external, could be internal, but we are conscious of them. We make an effort to encounter our internal obstacles and to overcome them. So, whatever help we need, whether it is through reading, whether it is through talks, whether it is through friends, whether it is through mentors, through professionals, we address our weaknesses so that we become heroes and heroines. And of course, our heroes are the emotional heart of the narrative. So I will never underplay the importance of being emotional, because your emotions give you strength, and you can't be a cold-blooded person to be a hero. So these are qualities which people who are critics of literature and studied literature, they have outlined these as essential qualities of a good hero or heroine. And perhaps you can apply this to yourselves and relate with it. So here's a tip. In life and literature, heroes don't start off as heroes. Nobody starts off as a hero. Many kinds of heroes exist. The common man can be a hero, but he won't be a hero if he keeps doing common things. You can start off as a common man, but then you grow yourself in such a way that you aim for something which is beyond the common man. So whether you decide to take up animal rights, whether you decide to take up environment, something which becomes a leitmotif for your life, and you say, I'm a common person, I'm an ordinary person, as I am. There's a lovely prayer which we used to say in school. And one of the lines of the prayer is, Dear God, help me to do the best I can as I am and where I am.
Mhm.
But to do your best and to go beyond yourself, that makes you a hero. So you could be a common person.
Right.
Misfits can become heroes because they do out of the box thinking. They think a little differently from everybody else. But they can't become misfits if they completely cut themselves off, because you have to relate to the world.
Relate, exactly.
And only then can you understand the world and give back to it.
Mm.
So you can start off as a misfit. There are many novels where the hero is a terrible misfit but becomes a hero. You have anti-heroes, people who start off with a lot of negativity. They're doing bad things. They could be criminals. They could be druggists, you know. In Sanskrit, we have this play where there was this Daku called Angulimal, and he actually becomes one of the greatest writers and poets and philosophers. So
Oh,
you could start off as an anti-hero,
ah,
but the journey of your life is what should make you change, so
yes.
that there is a change in you. So you
Hmm.
face this conflict of your own negativity and overcome it. You could be a coward. Um, Everyone looks at you and thinks you're a coward. Could never be a hero. But cowards have a hero hiding inside them. It's just a question of triggering it off. And like I said, recognizing the characters who've come into your life who can help you to make the change, listing them out, actively pursuing them, relating yourself to the world, and saying, I know this is a weakness, let me try and get over it. So we have a lot of beautiful stories of cowards becoming heroes. You have
Heroes, interesting.
loners
That's
become
interesting.
heroes.
Mm.
And apart from literature, in real life, through the hundreds and hundreds of students that I have taught, I have seen children who thought they were common, that they didn't fit in, that they were full of negativity. They came from a very aggressive,
Difficult.
and some who were too afraid to do anything, like to sit in a corner by themselves. Nobody would have thought they could
Oh,
become heroes. But through the kind of growth that they got, they changed.
That's
You have
inspiring.
jokers, those who are only clowning around in the classroom or who put on this whole facade of being utter lunatics. Nobody would think they're capable of greater action, but
Mhm.
they become heroes.
Mhm.
So no matter where you are placing yourself,
Yes.
inside you is a hero. So there's
Mhm.
so many others. I've taken this little illustration from a book called Catcher in the Rye, which
Uh-huh.
became a book which my generation in its younger age
Yes.
completely related with. And Holden Caulfield is the central character in the book. And as you can see here, he's expelled. And
Oh,
he's doesn't says I can't go home.
hmm.
So he starts roaming around and he starts observing what's happening in the world.
Hmm.
And he realizes what is wrong. And
Hmm.
he says, this is not right. So it's got nothing to do with where you're stuck, either in a
Yeah.
school or either in a
Hmm.
home or wherever. But
Hmm.
outside, there are a lot of opportunities. And you
Correct.
could be a person who's only talking to yourself all the time. But if you're having the right conversation, even as a loner or a misfit, you turn into a hero.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
the choices that such people make and what they eventually do, no matter what they are to begin with, that makes them the hero of the book.
Very well said. Yeah.
Yeah, so here is how the plot develops. Like I
Hmm.
told you, I've taken this as the elements of a novel, which is the elements of our life. So there's always a plot, and there are many subplots in
Hmm.
our lives. It consists of a chain of events and episodes. And on the screen, you can see I've drawn something called a story mountain. So let's start off at the opening. That was our exposition. I hope you can see it.
Yeah.
The foot of the mountain.
Yes.
The opening was all those factors which we couldn't control. Then many episodes start happening, different things start happening. Horrible things happen and wonderful things happen. You can have successes, you can have misery, and you can have a lot of disadvantages. New ones keep coming up, financial, health wise, loss of people we love, all sorts of things can happen. But equally in life, in good literature as in life, good things also happen. We sometimes don't recognize those good things because we are constantly focusing on what's going wrong. But at the same time, something somewhere is happening right. Maybe a person has come into your life who's going to be the good thing,
Hmm.
take you in a different direction.
Yeah.
Or you've picked up a skill. You didn't realize it, somebody pushed you into it, but it's a skill which might take you in a better direction. The trick is to be able to look at what's going wrong, but also to keep looking at what's going right.
Right.
Now, this build-up starts happening. Lots of conflicts and challenges happen, and the whole plot keeps moving upwards till you hit dilemmas. In literature, we call this a kind of climax. So whatever builds up from that hand you're dealt with, the way things have progressed, now you hit a climax or a dilemma. Whether you like it or not, there has to be a resolution of every dilemma,
Hmm.
one way or the other. So to lead a hero's life,
Yes.
you decide to tackle it and not let life slide its own way. And you tackle it with certain strengths in your hand and your heart and your head. So these three things work together. I'll just come to how we strengthen ourselves to handle these dilemmas. But the
Yes.
episodes, the chain of events is not going to stop in life. Conflict is going to be a part of it, like I already said. It will never be one at a time. Sometimes two, three, four may come together.
Hmm.
Sometimes it may be only one, and sometimes there'll be a short period of smooth sailing. But it is all moving. The plot keeps moving.
Yeah.
And these conflicts build up to climaxes, and these climaxes demand choices. There are external conflicts, internal conflicts. They could be very small ones. You know, mm, suppose someone's born with a terrible set of teeth, and you say, I think I'll get braces. I just want to look better. So you might do mini decisions like that. Or you have huge internal conflicts. For example, I can give you one from my own life. I was very young, pretty young when I got married, and my children were small, and I was married to an army man, and we would get posted all over the country. I myself believed in a very good education. So the conflict of should I stay with my husband and all of us live together as a family, or should I go and stay alone so that I can put my children in a good school and leave my husband alone? Now, these are not small conflicts. Such things happen in all our lives,
Yeah.
but you resolve them and you decide what is more important at what point of
Point.
time.
Mm.
So I may have decided that the first 10 years of my children's childhood, I just wanted all of us to be a happy family together, put my career at a lower point. Doesn't mean one's happy about it. But then you say, okay, now let's see, there's education, my own career. Doesn't mean my husband's happy sitting alone in a, maybe in a lovely posting like Lucknow or Goa. I mean, but you've taken a tough decision.
Yeah.
So, internal and external conflicts demand choices.
Mm.
One way or the other, the conflict will get resolved. We can't sit toying with ideas for too long. Eventually, there are certain things which help us make our decisions. I'll just come to that. And once we make the decision, then we say, okay, fine, now whatever it brings, I'm going to keep handling it. If I have decided this, now I'll keep handling it as
Mm.
nicely as I can.
Yeah.
So, a big question, and for a lot of the young people who are still on the second chapter of their novel of life, the big questions are how is the hero or heroine going to end each conflict? How will each chapter end? Because it's only chapters. Book is a long one. How will the final story end? Will it end with somebody as an eminent doctor and it's got nothing to do with just practicing medicine, but what you did with it and how you did it and who all you impacted. So we don't know how the story may end, but right now we are writing it. So here's the most critical thing. Plot and character meet. We are dealt with episodes and events, but where our character, the kind of people we are, where the central character has a certain persona, a certain personality, a certain set of qualities, now these two start influencing each other. You can change your plot, and the plot will also change you.
Also
So
change. Yeah.
plot and character meet.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
But if we resolve today's dilemma in a certain way, the next one will be different. So if I've taken a certain kind of decision today, it'll have influenced the next one also. So suppose I've decided to do a certain kind of course or certain kind of study. I was in a dilemma today, but I decided the next one is going to be influenced by today's choice. So how your character keeps
Mm.
developing, you will
Right.
start influencing the plot.
Yeah.
Hero's journey is a very classic diagram which we teach. You start off in an ordinary world. Something calls you. There's a call of adventure. Sometimes you say, I can't do it. You refuse the call. I can't do it. Then you meet somebody, some mentor, somebody who gives you a kickstart. Could be a parent, could be a teacher, could be someone else you meet like you. And you take the first step. You meet enemies, you meet some allies. There are a lot of tests. And you go through an ordeal, you get a reward, and then you have a very good road going back. And you return with something great. So this is a classic thing. If your character is okay,
Yeah.
uh, because we know that events and people and episodes do affect the hero, but the character also starts controlling the plot. And how the hero resolves each conflict helps them to grow their own character and therefore also be ready for the next challenge.
Right.
Now I come to the theme of the novel. Because, uh, the theme uh, is a very, it's not a small, the theme is not the plot. It's actually the larger than life, a universal idea about life and the world, which is a central thread. Before I really talk about the theme, I want to take a moment to talk about one event, Kavita,
Mm-hmm.
which has happened in the life of everyone listening to this talk or who will listen to this talk. It's a
Mm-hmm.
common event which has happened to each and every fellow of the
Yeah.
Goa school,
Yeah.
and that is education.
Yes, of course.
So now there are people in other novels who never get the benefit of a good education.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who are here or listening, this is one element of their life which is common to all, which is education.
Yeah.
Now, this is obviously a strength because real education gives you real strength. What has happened through this education is they have met teachers, they have met ideas, they have met concepts, they have met values, they have met mentors. So a huge thing has come into their lives of the young people here today, which is the education. It is the one thing that you can leverage to build your character, to change
Yeah.
your life, to handle all plots.
Correct.
So I really want to say that it is the one thing which gives you freedom. And it gives you the freedom to make your own choices. And
Mm-hmm.
we just saw that conflict and making choices is such a critical part of life and of any story of any life, that this one factor alone is giving you the freedom to make choices. And not just because of what you've learned in a book, but because you have learned values, you have learned, got new ideas, and our former president Abdul Kalam, he used to say that education, real education, is equal to three very important things. He used to say it includes creativity, courage, and righteousness. Now,
Mm-hmm.
creativity, I am not talking about art and music and literature as creative pursuits. It gives you, you can create yourself. The biggest thing you can create is yourself through your education, and you can decide what kind of person you want to be, and you have the tools and the equipment to create yourself through your education. The second thing he felt was righteousness. Very few people in the world bother about this. I think it's very important to do the right thing.
Right. Mhm.
Very few people have the guts and the conviction to say, I'll stand up against anything, but I won't do what is wrong. Again, to refer to a prayer which we often said in school, we asked God, we said, help me to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. This is
Mm.
a tough one, but
Yeah.
our education equips us to make the tough choice
Yeah.
rather than the easy wrong.
Mm.
And the hero will choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong.
Easier.
So, this
Yeah.
righteousness of
Mm.
what is right for civic society, what is right for my family or for the
Mm.
people at large, what is the right moral stance, I think it's very critical. And education helps us to have a sense of judgment. What is right and wrong? It definitely tells us
It
that.
does.
And because we can become doctors, lawyers, teachers, anything, but we can misuse this so badly. We can become a horrible doctor. We could become a teacher teaching wrong things, using
Mm.
our influence incorrectly. So the sense of righteousness, I think, has to be a guiding thing. I feel whichever home we come from, whichever school we come from, whatever education we come from, we need to have a little spiritual inner strength.
Mm.
We can
Right.
get it from anything. But
Yes.
that little spiritual strength gives us the sense of righteousness कि ये ठीक है, ये ठीक नहीं है.
हाँ,
Have
बिल्कुल.
to do the right thing.
Like the moral compass.
And what kind of use are we putting our training and our education to? It has to be the right
Hmm.
use.
Hmm.
So I think that's really, really important. And the last thing, of course, is courage. If
Yeah.
I know I'm doing the right thing, I'll have the guts.
Right.
That'll make me a hero.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think d making these choices the harder right instead of the easier wrong.
Easier on.
This leads us to the theme of the novel, which you can see before you. Because the theme of the novel is always something larger, it's a larger idea. Some novels are about women's emancipation, some novels are about um, fundamental rights, of human beings. Some are about environment and how the world is also linked, and this central thread which comes into our lives guides us. And it'll guide the way in which our story gets written. So, for instance, um, justice, a sense of fairness, what is just
Yeah.
and what is not just.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. I used to get caught with this very badly when I was heading a school like Welham, because we got innumerable requests for admissions. And frankly, all children are equal. All children deserve a good education. So even if I tried to look at it from that point of view, everybody, I mean, if I had the space, I would admit everyone. And because education is supposed to be inclusive, education is supposed to, not discriminate. But you are stuck because you can only take so many.
Hmm.
And then how do you choose? So how do you say yes to one child and no to another child?
Yeah, very difficult.
Very difficult. So do you say I set certain criteria which I make transparent,
Hmm.
and then I say after this, whoever does well, let them come. But it's still a it's a moral dilemma.
Hmm.
It's a life dilemma.
Yeah.
Who to say no to?
Hmm.
And why, and
Yeah.
who to say yes to and why.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we do go through these kinds of things. Some are very easy. I won't take a bribe is the easiest one. I
Hmm.
won't tell a lie is the easy one. But when it's a very fine balance, fine difference, these become difficult. So as much transparency as we can bring into our lives, I recommend it. It makes it easy for us to live with ourselves.
True.
And you have to, at the end of the day, live with yourself. So the theme of your novel has to be something larger than life, something which is mental truths that you have told yourself, this I can do, this I cannot do.
Hmm.
I will always be like this and I can never be like that. And we make
Hmm.
this as a wise choice out of
Hmm.
righteousness and out of
Hmm.
courage.
Hmm.
Then there's a point of view. These are important. What story does the narrator keep telling himself or herself? So, it's wonderful. If you look at the same story from a child's point of view, you look at the same story, say from a policeman's point of view, you look at the same story from a judge's point of view, you look at the same story from an outsider's point of view or a neighbor's point of view. It changes the perspective. So when we grow, we should be able to look at ourselves from different perspectives and from different points of view and say, how do I appear to so and so? How do I appear to so and so?
Hmm.
Um, how am I as a parent? How am I as a son or a daughter? How am I as a sibling? Does my brother look at me the same way as my best friend does? So wearing different hats and looking at yourself helps you to grow into a nice rounded character.
So introspection. Okay.
Introspection and taking feedback
Hmm. Right.
and being able to take feedback.
Yes.
And secondly is the point of view, is my whole life point of view very pessimistic or is it optimistic? So there are people who keep on dwelling on what's going wrong. So, and you keep telling yourself, "Mere paas ye bhi nahi hai, I don't have this, I can't do this." And that is a story you repeat to yourself, which we should never do. Never, never, never dwell on what's going wrong.
Hmm.
So keep telling yourself a good story about yourself. And I think
Mhm.
that really helps. And that leads to the tone of the novel. We have some novels which are very dark and always pessimistic, some which are really humorous and funny. You have people like R.K. Narayan who can look at huge injustice but in a
Yes.
light-hearted way, or like R.K. Lakshman. They see the ironies of life, but they get past them. Some are matter of fact, some people are positive. So, what is the tone we are bringing to our lives? I think we should generally try and have a cheerful and positive tone
Yeah.
and see the best in ourselves and others. That makes
Mhm.
the story of our lives nice for us
Better.
to go along with.
Mhm.
So, I'm just asking everybody, what type of book is your autobiography going to be? And how are you going to write your own life story? Because you are the author of your own biography. How are you going to assess the events, the characters, your own qualities, what you were dealt with, what you've made of them, and which direction do you want to go, depending on the theme that you have given for your life? Because you mustn't let other people write your script.
Yes.
And I've shown an open book here. In the opening slide, I had a book with also the mysterious stuff. Where is it going to go? But here we have, this is like St. George and the Dragon. The dragon come out of the book, which is threatening this little hero. But
Yes.
he's got his sword up. He's
Ah,
going to take it on and write the rest of the book.
wow.
And I just want to say all the best for the great book that you are writing. Every young fellow of the Goa school, identify your strengths, get hold of your friendly sidekicks, good mentors, rely on your education, have the guts to choose the harder right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much.
Jyotsna. This is a unique, meaningful, and reflective concept of viewing our lives as a novel and unfolding in multi-dimensional ways. You've done it so well. Thank you so much. And you've taken us through this mesmerizing, insightful journey of looking at ourselves as a protagonist of our lives with practical and life-changing tips. Thank you so much.
Any questions you feel you may want to ask, either of you?
Sometimes people don't know what their goal is in life or their purpose in life, and they're clueless. So, can you throw some light on that?
Yes. So we never fix a narrow goal
Yes.
because there are going to be so many circumstances. The goalpost keeps changing.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest tips I can say is that you identify what you enjoy, you
Yes.
identify what you do well.
Hmm.
Like you may enjoy music but be tone deaf, but what you do well and enjoy, and
Yes.
fix the central theme of your life,
Yes.
of the direction you wanted to take.
Hmm.
But you don't fix a narrow, pinpointed goal. But
Right.
as your life unfolds and events
Hmm.
and episodes and people keep entering it, you'll know which choice to make
Correct.
because
Correct.
you will know what you like to do, what you're good at, and
Yes.
what kind of life you want to lead.
Yes.
And just these three things become a guiding principle. And
Right. Right.
I think there's no one choice.
Yes.
And it makes you nice and flexible. And you
Yes.
have no idea what is going to open up. Something new might come up
Exactly.
tomorrow, and you
Yes.
might be able to set a new goal.
Hmm. Correct. Correct. So it does take time to develop the goal and purpose as you journey along life. You don't always have a clear goal in the beginning, but
But you have a clear idea of what you like, what you enjoy, what you do well,
hmm.
and the kind of person you want to be. And I think
Yeah.
just these three things
Yes.
help you keep on deciding. And
Huh.
you're a career counselor and you tell all young people, we have no idea what careers are going to open up in
Yes.
the future. The
True.
world is changing so fast. I
Yes.
think if your intrinsic inner self and your basic strengths are there, you'll
Hmm.
be able to keep making good use of new openings.
Right. Yeah. True.
So just
Any
one tip.
questions, Paloma?
Hi. So I thought it was a fantastic talk and so well
Yes.
portrayed. So really nice. I do have a question actually. So sometimes people feel that the same plot keeps happening to them again and again. So
Yeah,
sometimes, they've already gone through a battle, they fought it, and then after some time the same thing happens again. So how would
yeah,
you
yeah. So here's what happens. Bad things happen, but they happen not like a vicious circle. They actually happen like a spiral. So we teach this as well as a life skill that bad things happen. You feel you're back at where you started, but actually you're not. You're actually slightly above or slightly below.
okay.
Now it's up to you to see if you are allowing your life to spiral upwards or spiral downwards. So you have to revisit the choices you made and say it's not, you don't talk of it as in an absolute sense as this is what I decided. But you say, this is the kind of decision I took. Next time something like this happens, will I be equally rigid or will I remain there? Where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
So even if you've taken it one step up and you're still not a great position, but you're in a slightly better position, either you've got someone better to assist you with. If your health went for a six, did you find somebody to assist you to cope with it? Because everything is not about the ending, but how you managed it.
Very
And
true.
each time, if you manage a little better, you help your life to spiral upwards. You
Mm.
do keep going round and round, but you spiral
Yeah.
upwards. And if you don't handle it rightly, it can spiral downwards.
Down.
Yeah.
Mm. True.
Yeah, I think what you spoke about, although we've kind of geared it towards the youngsters, I think it is something that even adults can
Of
apply. And
course,
Of
of
course. It's
course,
for all of us.
there are some of us that are still stuck in
as long as we
certain
are alive,
chapters.
we have to keep writing our book.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And I'm confident that all who've heard your talk will embark on attempting a bestseller.
I hope they write
Yes.
one, a great one, and that we get fantastic new heroes and heroines. And a hero or a heroine may remain unsung. But the beauty of doing something right is that you know inside yourself that you've done the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, there's this famous book by Dickens called A Tale of Two Cities, where
Mm.
the
Mm.
very last lines are by this very dissipated character called Sidney Carlton, and who has actually decided to step in for somebody else to save that person's life and go to the gallows instead. And been such a pessimistic, dissipated character. And then at the end, he's thinking as he's stepping up on the last step, he says, it's a far, far better thing I do than I have ever done.
Yeah.
It is a far, far better life I go to than I have ever known.
Mm.
So somewhere he's, even in that last step, he knows that this has been a good heroic decision. So I'm applauding the hero in myself.
Mm. Yeah. True.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful way to end this session.
Yeah.
So well. I actually got goosebumps.
I know you've woven
Thank
so
you
much,
all.
Jyotsna, in the presentation and so much to take from here, so many takeaways.
Anything, even if there's some little impression left or some little nugget, we say in teaching, you can teach a huge lesson and only a small percentage gets through to a small percentage of
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
But even that's a step up in the spiral.
Hmm.
Yeah.
True. So being positive and cheerful.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
good luck to everybody.
Yes.
I look
Thank you so
forward to
much.
reading your books and
Yes.
meeting you in the pages, your lives. Thank
True.
you, Kavita. Thank
Thank
you, the
you,
Goa
Jyotsna.
School.
Thank you so much, Joseph. It was
Palomni,
Thank you,
wonderful.
everyone.
Paloma.
Thank you. Yep, all
I
the
hope I've
best.
kept to the time as well. So
Yes,
have a great day.
perfectly. Thank you very much.
Bye
Yep,
bye.
take care. Have a
Bye.
lovely day. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.